All right, well, we have learned a lot, right? We've talked about state and setting state and hooks and different functional components. We've talked about parents and children and floating information from a parent to a child. And we've talked about the arrow function. So we've done a lot, but we have missed out on one major element of React, which is React is a front-end technology. All right, so at least that's where it started, a front-end technology, and usually it's paired with a back-end technology like ASP.NET. So how do we get information from ASP.NET down to the forms and whatnot that we're going to have in React? And the answer is we're going to use a JSON file. And when the user fills out a form in React and we want to get it back to .NET, how do we pass that information? The answer is in a JSON file. And so we need to talk more about JSON. Now, we talked a little bit about last time the JavaScript object notation, right? That's what it stands for. But it's basically a text file, and the way I like to think about it is it's like a database in a text format. If all we had available to us to store information was a text file, then that's how we'd store it, right? We have the name of the table and some brackets, and then inside we have braces that represent an entry, and we have commas to separate them and colons next to the field names and whatnot. So we'll look at one here in a second, and we'll talk about it more, but that's the way I think about it. We're taking data and putting it in a text format, but it's like a text version of a database. And so I've got a file that I'll link to that is provided. We'll harken back to the Joel Hilton movie collection. I'm going to grab this little sample here and drop it into my project. Now, for some reason, it won't paste when I do that. But if I click on Edit Paste, it's totally fine to do that. And this file needs to be in the source folder. So I'll drop it in the source folder, and we can take a look at it. And here it is. We just have a file named moviedatasample.json, and inside of it, it's got these braces that indicate that this is all part of that same data. We've got a table name. We've got square brackets to indicate that these are entries inside this table. And then we have curly braces representing this is one entry, this is another entry, and those are all separated by commas. Within each entry, we have the name of the column, and then what's in that column, what data is in that column. Next column, what data is in that column. So I've just grabbed a few movies here. If you want to type it out, you can. We don't need much here. Not a big deal. To get this information, I'm saying, well, we need to have it because we're going to do an example with it. But if you just want to type out a few of these records, then you could do that as well. All right, so let's get this data printing on our website. So I'm going to create a new, in the source folder, I'm going to create a new file called moviecollection.tsx. So this is going to be our TSX component. And in here, I know I need to say function, movie collection, and then opening, closing parentheses, opening brace. And then I know at the end, I'm going to need to export default movie collection. So some of this hopefully is starting to just be ingrained because we're doing it so frequently. And then our function needs to return something. So return, opening parenthesis, closing parenthesis, need to have a brace on the end. And now we've got our little movie collection set up. Well, what is this going to return? Well, first of all, we got to get this JSON file into our component. How do we do that? Can I drag this file? I actually don't know the answer to this. Can I drag this and bring it in? Apparently not. Okay, so that doesn't work. How do I get this data in here? And so just like other things we've done, we're going to use an import function. So we say import, and then we can give it whatever name we want to. I'm going to call it movie file from, and then we put in some quotes, dot, slash will take us to root, and then we can see that file. If that file was anywhere else in this project, we wouldn't be able to see it. It has to be in that source folder. So I grab that file and it says, oh, okay, I know what you're talking about. I'll go bring in the moviedatasample.json into this functional component in React. Okay, now what do I do with it? Well, it's in its own file format. I need it to be in something I can use in code. And so what we do is we take that file, we build a const, and then we call it whatever we want to. And I'm trying to come up with different names here for everything. This is going to be our movie info, and it's going to be equal to going into that movie file and then grabbing the table, which is named movie data sample. So all of that information is going to be brought into a const that holds the data that we can then loop through and do what we need to in React, in TypeScript, which is ultimately JavaScript. All right, so then we have to have our little movie collection here. Let's go print out this information. So we come in and we build a little table. So I'm going to build my React fragment there. And then inside the React fragment, I'm going to build a table. And then the table's going to have a head in it, just like we've done with other tables. And then each there's going to be a row in there. And inside that row, we're going to have different columns. So if we go look at our movie data sample, we have category, title, year, director, rating. Just to prove that we don't need to follow this order, I'm going to start with title instead, and year, and then director, rating. I'll make category last. So inside here, I'm going to say, okay, the first column is the title. Second column is the year. Third column is the director. Then the rating. And then the category. Whoops. TD category. Okay, so, okay. Sometimes when you hit the tab, it does things you don't want it to do. All right, so then after our table head, then we'll have our table body. And inside that body, we're going to have a bunch of columns. But we want to print out all the rows. And so this is going to remind us of what we did in that last set of videos as we were getting a little taste test of React, right? We learned that there's this map function that allows us to print everything out all at once. And so I'm just going to remind us of how to use that. So what we're going to do is inside this body, I'm going to call our movie info that we've just created, and we're going to call the map function on it. And as you'll recall, we set up saying, hey, there's going to be a variable called m that we're going to use for each entry. And then we use this arrow function, opening brace. And then what are we going to print out? Well, I'm going to do a table row. And then inside that row, I'm going to have a table domain. And I need to go get the data from that JSON object that's been brought into this movie info const. Then I go call that const. I say m, which is this instance. And I say the first thing we want is the title. Okay, then after that, I don't know why we're getting so much red, but I'm going to fix that here in a minute. We have the year. And then after that, we have, I'm just looking up at what we have above it, m.director. And then after that, we have m.rating. Whoops, inside our braces, remember, to get it to be recognized as a variable. So m.rating. And then the last one is m.category. All right, we've got a ton of red here. And lots of less helpful errors. And I think what I've done is just messed up one of my braces or something. So let me see what I've got. Movie info dot map. This is supposed to be a parenthesis. So I messed that up. Whoops. That means this should be a parenthesis. Oh, and then it's totally happy. I need glasses, apparently. All right, so now that we've got this, let's see if we can make this work. We only have a few seconds. I'll save this, and I'll go to my app TSX, and I'm going to throw in here my movie collection. It's not going to recognize it at first. Oh, it is. It's already imported. So we're good there. And if it isn't, then go ahead and import it. And I'm going to save. And there's our movie collection. Spencer out.